Hey everyone, Jesse Green here. Welcome back to the Savvy Netters podcast, and it is great to have your company on what is a very hot day here in Canberra. It is currently January in 2026. The Australian Open is on, and it is 40 degrees here. So I'm standing here with the aircon blasting behind me, and I'm joined by my good friend Michael Filosi. Michael, welcome back to the podcast. This is round 2 for you, mate. It's good to have you back.
It is. Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, lovely to be with you, and yeah, very happy to get a call up, get a second go.
Mate, can't go past the beard. You're channeling Letterman, and
That's right.
and Letterman retired from a show, grew a beard. You've retired from practice, grown a beard. What's the go? I can't grow a beard no matter what I do, but anyway.
Look, there's a little bit of Letterman in there. I did quite like in my uni days, coming home, and that always seemed to be on at some random hour of the night. So I like the fact that I'm not Letterman by any stretch, but he said that when he had to shave every single day for work, obviously being on TV, he can't have any shadowing like that. And then after he went off air and retired, he grew a bushman's beard. And I guess I'm emulating him. I've got less on top now, so I've got to grow it somewhere. So just letting the beard grow free.
All right, there you go, mate. What I always joke that what I lack in facial hair, I make up for with eyebrows. So there we go. We've got Johnny Howard eyebrows.
Indeed, you've got that in common too. So
there we go. So, mate, last time we spoke, we were talking about your practice. We were talking about getting off the tours. And in that conversation we had, we spoke about one-way doors, two-way doors, different experiments that, would hatched out a couple of plans and you executed and you'd been able to extract yourself from day-to-day operations. Catch us up where you're up to, mate, because I know there's some big news.
Yeah, so last time we spoke, you're quite right. And I did listen back to that as well. And I was in the thick of it and we're still growing and scaling fairly rapidly. I've now sold. So I have sold my practice, and that happened 5 and a bit months ago now. So 1st of September last year. So I'm now, 4.5, 5 months now. Well, I guess it'll be, 5 months tomorrow, actually, funnily enough. And I'm all done and I am a free man, so to speak. So yeah, I'm no longer owner. I've sold the practice.
Officially unemployed.
Unemployed and unemployable. That's right.
I love it. Yeah, but me too, mate. I'm unemployable. But anyway, that's the whole conversation. So, mate, firstly, congratulations. It's a lot of work to get to that point of getting a sale, and we're going to unpack what your sale looked like, some of the specifics around that, how your practice operated. And I suppose essentially I'd like to call this the anatomy of a successful exit, if we could call it that, because It is a successful exit. Mm-hmm. But before we get to the nuts and bolts of what that looks like, I want to ask you a little bit about the reasons for selling, because your practice, very profitable, very well run, required next to no time from you. That's in some people's minds living the dream. And there's a great saying that a business that's good to sell is also good to own. But for some reason, the scale's tipped, and I'm just curious to understand what your thinking was.
Sure. Look, so I guess to give some context. So yeah, my practice had 10 chairs, 30 plus team members. I was off the tools entirely, so I wasn't seeing patients. My contribution to the practice revenue was 0.6%, so extremely small, a rounding error. And it came on pretty quickly, the decision to sell. So I thought it would be another 15, 20 years, I suppose, but I started to toy with the idea, and very quickly it became clear it's what I wanted to do. There are a whole lot of reasons for that, and I guess you can look at it in different ways in terms of how the decision was made. I think it starts to occupy a really large place in your head, I suppose. One of the words that's used to describe me is intense. It's a word that comes up a fair bit, and I think that it's sort of all-encompassing, right? And it occupies such a large space of your headspace. There's not much room for much else. And to be highly successful and to run a really good business, sometimes it can be at the expense of other things. And I think I was ready to wake up and not be Michael Filosi, practice owner. I was ready just to be Michael Filosi and start again from that. I also went through a list. I got very granular with it of all the reasons why you might do something, why you do anything. So you do some things because you have to, like pay taxes or obey red lights. You do some things because it's good for you, like eating broccoli. You do some things because you enjoy it. You do some things as an act of service to others. And I was going through all those lists of the reasons why you do literally anything. And I realized I literally couldn't tick anything anymore. I was like, I can't find a good reason to keep going. It was quite that simple. And I realized, well, it's quite a significant realization, I suppose. I think also I looked at the last 10 years of my life, and it was a lot of fun. We achieved an enormous amount, and I really love being a business owner. I love business, as we've chatted a lot about it. Yep. But all of a sudden, I think that the cost of being a business owner and what it took out of me was no longer worth the benefit, I suppose, from my point of view. And the juice wasn't worth the squeeze anymore. And I Arrived at that fairly quickly, to be honest. I think that sort of mindset set in. I tend to be someone who, I'm not a gradual decision maker. Things, when it hits me, and I think I realized that it was time for me to do something else with my life, and or at least at the very least sort of move on from what I was doing. So yeah, that's a bit of the background for how I arrived at it.
Yeah, cool. Now, I'm going to go a little bit further into the background if I
Sure.
can, to talk a bit about the history of the practice, because there'll be some
Sure.
lessons there for those that are not at that point of sale or thinking about an exit, but how to grow and scale. And again, I remember vividly, we were sitting at Longboards at the Gold Coast one day having an ale, and we are talking about running some experiments, cutting down your days and all the rest of it. And one of the things that I've always really admired about you, Michael, is you've got a very clear thought process, and if this then that kind of logic was very, very good. Like it's almost like a schematic going on in your brain there. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the practice as it was when you purchased it,
Sure.
a couple of the key milestones along the way, but what did the practice look like by the time it got to sale?
So when I bought the practice, it's fair to say it was a practice that nobody else wanted. It had 2 dental chairs. It had carpet in one of the treatment rooms. Didn't have a website. It had possums in the walls, but I loved it. I fell in love with it. So the autoclave was next to the sink in the staff room. So it was something, but I fell in love with it straight away. And I think what others saw, I could see what it could become. I could see in my mind's eye, I could see the potential that it had. And I probably didn't think quite I had the potential of where I got it to, because we ended up buying the property next door, turning it into a car park, extending to the back of the existing property. However, I could see the potential that it had. But when I sold, it had 10 dental chairs, 30 plus staff, 7 or 8 dentists, 4 or 5 hygienists / OHTs. We developed an intranet, which I believe is sort of industry leading in terms of how the practice operated. So that was an internal thing just for the practice. Yeah, highly trained team, highly skilled team, very good culture. It was a very well-run practice. It's still like I wasn't on the tools, but I was still working hard, just in a different sense, I suppose. So it wasn't in the sense of like, it wasn't that I was not having to turn up or do anything like that. I was still there and active and involved. But I think that you go from building things, which is really good fun, to you're building all these cool things. You're doing the renovations, you're building the intranet, you're building a team culture, you're building a practice. And it went from building things to fixing things. And that's not nearly as much fun. So fixing broken things, this isn't working, that's not working, these 2 people aren't getting along, that stopped working, we've got this problem with this. It doesn't excite me in the same way as building something does. And I am accepting of the fact there's always going to be a certain element of fixing in it. But I realized I sat in my office and you basically wait for Slack to go off or someone to knock on your door or an email to come up with something that's not working. And you go in there and you fix it. So I use the analogy, as a child, building blocks. As a kid, you build blocks, you go, hey, this is cool. And like, it's cool. You can sit there and you can show what you've done. That's good fun. I kind of went to being the parent that when the kid knocks it over, they cry and you quickly put it back together, but there's not a whole lot of appreciation for having put it back together. All you've done is get it back to where it was, which is a lot less fulfilling. No one goes, hey, that's a cool stack. They're just like, oh, yep, cool, keep going. And that's where it got to, where the level of satisfaction was markedly lower. Wasn't enjoying it in the same way as what I was. I had a few chats because I was 41 when I sold, so still young, fairly young. And it's it was something that came on fairly quickly, the decision to sell, but it came on absolutely as well. Once it became clear to me it was what to do, I absolutely was certain it was the right thing to do. When I talked to my team, when I let them know at the point of sale, I made that clear to them as well. This was not a hard decision to make in the end in terms of selling. It's absolutely the right thing to do. And since then as well, I haven't had one regret about doing so. So I feel that once I make a decision, and we've talked about this off air, that I'd written an email to my accountant and it was all set to go. And I knew that when I sent that email, which is basically to say, I think I might want to sell, how do I go about this? I knew as soon as I hit that, that was the first domino of a lot. But I knew that once I did that, my personality type is such that the die is cast, it's happening. So it was quite a momentous thing when you hit that send button for me.
Yeah. And again, coming back to your decision making around this, and I'll come back to the practice as well, mate, because again, I just want to dive into a few of the specifics around what the practice journey was. But again, 81 days?
Correct. So I sent the email to my accountant on June 14th, I think it was, last year, to say, I think I might want to sell. And at that point, I hadn't spoken to any potential buyers. And 81 days later, the practice changed hands. So in that, you then go to market, find buyers, meet with them, give figures, negotiate. They do their due diligence. contracts all signed, legal, all of that. So yeah, literally like 81 days between me sending that email to my accountant to say, oh, look, I think I might want to do this. 81 days later, that was it.
So I just want to linger on the 81 days. I'm going to go back in time again, mate, because the reason
Sure.
81 days I think is such a really impressive number is because the business was sale ready, even though up until that point you hadn't contemplating selling. And so you
Correct.
and I are both fans of John Warrillow's work, Built to Sell. And the big idea, and certainly what we try and instill in our clients' minds as well, is always be having it sale ready because you never know what's going to happen, whatever circumstances arise. And so your business was sale ready, even though up until that point
100%.
you hadn't considered selling it. So I think it's a key lesson there for the audience members just to make sure that your business could be sold at any given point in time.
100% agreed. And you're exactly right. So it was a highly sellable asset. Simple as that. So that's what facilitates it. There was no loose threads that I had to tie up to try and get it sale ready. It's interesting. Since I sort of had a number of colleagues in dentistry and beyond dentistry say, hey, I might want to sell. How did you do it? How did you go about it? But they always say, oh, look, it's going to take me 12, 18 months to get this in order and that in order to make the books look better, all these sorts of things. And I think that you're quite right. I was always of the view, even though the decision to sell came on quickly, I wanted an asset that was ready to rock and roll, ready to sell when I decided to do that. So in advance, for years, I've been just having casual discussions or keeping tabs of what do buyers look for, like what is important to them, to make sure that I was ticking those boxes. So it was absolutely ready to go at that point. So it was a turnkey solution. I was able to demonstrate to that to potential buyers very quickly, very easily, the fact that this practice is ready to sell and ready to take over. And it was my view was it was the best run practice in Adelaide and potentially Australia, to be honest. It was a, well-oiled machine.
Yeah, certainly. I know the people that purchased it made similar comments as well. I want to go back though, because the journey from 2 chairs with possums in the wall to 10 chairs with a car park next door that's a bit of a leap, right? And so there's obviously some stages in between. I wanted to talk about what was the first thing you did when you bought it from 2 chairs. Was it tidying up what you got? Was it adding capacity? What was the team structure like?
So the first thing, it's a really good question. I haven't been asked that before, Jesse. I think the first thing, my view is this, right? Like, if you're good enough, you may pay with what you've got. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I wanted was an opportunity. That's it. I wanted bums on seats. So I took over from someone who probably wasn't the most charismatic. I worked with a gentleman who was amazing and he had a very strong following. Fantastic. The seat that I took over, I suppose, was not a particularly charismatic gentleman dentist. So all I wanted was a chance. All I wanted was I just need a patient there and then it's up to me. And
Yep.
I very much was very sure that I could build the practice initially. So I didn't have a view to being off the tools and all these other things. I just wanted my own practice, my own business. And very quickly that reaps rewards and you get feedback from reception teams and things going, it's nice to hear someone like you're like that guy and that guy's gone well and you're talk to patients the same sort of way. So I just wanted the opportunity initially. So first of all, I wanted to capitalize on what I got, which was a patient base and not much else.
Yep.
So absolutely, that was the first thing. Consolidate that, right? From that point forward, I bought the building as well. And
At
any
the
spare
time?
moment, 100%. Yep. So it was all related. So I wanted to make sure I needed confirmation I'd bought the building before I signed off to say that I'd bought the practice too, because I was very clear. This is my asset here and I want both of them. Right. So I wanted to own the property. So there were 2 different negotiations with 2 different people, which is good fun. Got that all sorted. And so then I knew, right, oh, this is mine. And then I knew that I bought in half the practice with a view to buying the other half down the track, which is exactly what happened. But every spare moment I got, I was tearing out walls myself. I was out the back, cutting down shrubs. I was just into it, right? And I loved it. It was good fun. And I think dentistry is very micro, right? You're working with fractions of a millimeter. So to go and pull out a tree is jolly good fun because you're like, get your hands dirty. And it's just brute strength and ignorance, right? Like there's not a whole lot of skill. So I wanted the team to see how hard I was working at it and that this thing meant something to me. So my style of leadership, I guess, I'm not a natural leader, someone who can give a big rallying cry, but I was going to demonstrate the behaviors that I expected others to have. So that's patient care, do the right thing and work your backside off. Okay. So every spare moment I got, I was working there in some capacity or not. Yeah. Tearing out things, putting things back together, fixing plumbing, doing whatever I could, right? To get that ball rolling and get that thing happening and bring it further towards my dream.
Yeah, I love that. And there's two follow-up questions, and I'll deliver them both, and you can maybe answer them either simultaneously or sequentially, up to you. But The first question I've got is culture, because you spoke about demonstrating the behaviors that you want to see in others, and that behaviors kind of belie values and beliefs and all those sorts of things. So the first question is, what were the values and beliefs and the culture pieces that were important to you in the practice? And the second thing around that is, what was the first piece of capacity you added? Was it an extra one chair, two
Sure.
chairs? And then where I'm going with that is the complexity that comes when you add capacity, maintaining culture. How did that
Yeah.
journey go?
So I needed buy-in from the existing team. So I was very thankful. There's a lady there who's the practice manager at the time, and she could see what I was trying to do. And I was very fortunate because she bought into what I was doing. It would have been so easy for her to go, who's this new guy? He wants to add computers and all these things, and just push back. But instead, she, to her immense credit, bought into what I was trying to do. So she was a supporter of mine. She could see it, go, this guy Michael was trying to do some cool things. She knew the practice needed updating, but that doesn't mean she had to buy into what I was trying to do, right? Yeah. So that was important to do. And the other team members could see I came with an agenda for change. I don't love that term change agent, right? So for certain things, like people want to be a change agent, it's like we don't need change. We don't need a white knight. We just need someone to follow the rules. But that's a story for another day. But when I came in, the practice did need updating. Clearly, it did need a burst of energy. So that was my agenda. And I came there with that. And I was really clear on that. Look, I'm here to turn what I love about this place, but do it at scale, bring it up to speed. So I think, hard work, patient care, doing the right thing by people were the key philosophies, I suppose, that I was demonstrating in my behavior. The first capacity I added was chairs. But straight away, we're also looking at, I say chairs, we got new chairs, but also I was straight away in contact with the architect about how do we expand this thing, expand the physical footprint. So again, I was always meeting with the builder to go, what does this design look like? How do we make it bigger? To get floor space, ultimately to get return on investment, you need chairs, right? So to maximize the number of surgeries, build out a bit extra, because that's what's going to pay everything.
So was the first extension big enough to then ultimately put 10 chairs in, or did you have to extend once, twice, three times?
Correct. So I bought in 2015. In April 2017, we had a reopening and we had 6 chairs then. So that was, my wife was heavily pregnant with
2 to 6?
We went 2 to 4, but there was capacity for 6.
Right.
So we had six rooms plumbed, ready to go.
Yep.
We went from 2 to 4. What we found was that every 2 chairs was a natural hurdle. Okay. So going from 2 to 3 was a step. 3 to 4 was fine. So every time we went from an even number of chairs to an odd number of chairs, that's where everything we had to start again. So 2 to 3, 4 to 5, 6 to 7, where I'm out to. 5 to 6, and then, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Each time we jumped those two chair hurdles, and each time we got 2 extra chairs. So it went 2, 4, 6, 8, and then finally 10.
Yeah. So I think for the audience here, there's a couple of really key and salient points that I'd really like you to contemplate and to linger on. And that is, as you add more capacity, as Michael has indicated, things needed to be fixed up. So the systems for a 2-chair practice are vastly different from a 4 or 6 or an 8-chair practice. You need to go back and adjust that. Ultimately, your team structure is clearly going to need to change. And it's not just having more DAs, more receptionists. It means there's probably a layer of middle management that creeps in there, a leadership team perhaps, because trying to manage a team of 20 or 30 people, you need other support in place to do that. You can't just go from 0 to 100 and expect it all to be seamless.
Totally.
So again, Michael, what were the things that broke firstly?
Yep. So the chair side was modular. You get 2 more chairs. Yep. We set them up exactly the same.
Yep.
The staff thing was not at all modular. So it's the whole saying of yesterday's home runs don't win tomorrow's baseball games, right? Like that's the thing. So how we did things before. So we were constantly iterating with our leadership setup, our reporting structure, and how we did things. So the chairs was the easy part. That was like, 2 more, cabinetry the same, just do it. The hard thing was, how are we going to operate? And it's the 4 Ds of you're doing, you're delegating, you're designing, and I've forgotten one, sorry. Delegating maybe. So working up that chain, making sure that each time we were assessing, we were designing the workflow. So we had the technicians, which is the receptionists and the dental assistants and the dentists and our health therapists. Then we were trying to design their workflow to make it as easy as possible for them to work. And same thing for the receptionists. So we were trying to make their lives as easy as possible so they could do the best work possible. And they weren't hitting hurdles and friction to make their lives hard.
Yeah. I want to ask you about your role and how it transitioned and changed over time as well. So for the practice owners listening, you started off going in that original practice, give me patient, I'll take the opportunity and grow from there, to ultimately being 0.6% of revenue or whatever it is there, very low. I want to talk to you about transitioning from clinician to business owner, because there's a big identity shift that occurs in that as well. Now, for some people, I think, find it a little easier. I suspect from your point of view, Michael, and I don't want to put words in your mouth and I don't want to make suppositions, but we had lots of conversations. I feel I'm on relatively safe ground, but happy to be corrected nonetheless.
Sure.
You've always had an interest in business, right? You've always enjoyed that. For me, I've always enjoyed business more than clinical work. I enjoyed dentistry, but business was always my passion. So my identity was always around business, not so much clinical work. So I wanted to ask you about changing hats, changing roles.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And we've had lots of chats about it. You're quite right. I'm much like yourself, Jesse. Like, I'm a serviceable dentist, and I'm probably underselling myself a bit in saying that. But I recognize that there were people who could do clinical dentistry better than what I could. And that sucks, because if you care deeply and if you're my type of personality wants to have outlier results, and then when you realize, you're like, you know what, there's people here that my ceiling is hitting at their floor. They're just doing this magical work and they've got really good hands. And I'm like, I don't have that. And so I realized, well, look, I probably can't be the best clinical dentist in Adelaide, but I reckon I can have a crack at having the best dental practice in Adelaide. And that right there was the turning point for me of going, I'm going to be exceptional, not as a clinician, but as a practice owner, and have the best dental practice in Adelaide, which is what I feel like I achieved. So I think for me, I didn't quite, some dentists who leave practice, they do it, they're running from the darkness. They hate dentistry and they want to go away from it. I was running towards the light. I really like this thing called business, and that really attracted me to it. So that's sort of how the broad brushstrokes of that, of realizing I can probably have a crack at having the best dental practice in Adelaide. I'm not sure I can have a crack at being the best dentist, and being attracted to that, of going, if I'm going to reach my own personal Everest, that's going to be the mountain to climb. But then also just really liking, like, to me, business was the ultimate game, right? I've always liked board games and things like that. There's so many moving parts. It's so intricate. There's lots of self-interest involved as well. So everyone's got to play it to some degree. Everyone's advocating for themselves and their own interests. And it just seemed like this game that I wanted to learn. It seemed like something I wanted to be part of. It seemed like something I wanted to get into and really immerse myself in. And it was something I really enjoyed. I liked the challenge. When I did dentistry, my mum, I used to do maths at school and really enjoyed that. She did comment. She said, "Oh, look, Michael, like, good on you, but I wonder if you're going to miss the numbers side of things." And I think she's right, because then as a practice owner, I think I had the best set of spreadsheets in Australia. Like, we measured all sorts of 12-month moving averages and contribution to this, like, not for the sake of it. I knew what to measure. Like, that was the key thing. So it wasn't numbers for the sake of numbers. I knew which critical drivers would drive the results. So I knew exactly what to look at, and I tracked them fastidiously. And so I knew my numbers inside out, and that was good fun. I think I used to like the end of month and hitting print on the reports, and then being able to copy and paste data and figure out which way we're going. So I think that was a natural interest there for me, and a natural itch to scratch.
Yeah, look, I'm in the same boat as you, mate. I love a pivot table as much as the next person. I feel like I should go to Microsoft Excel Anonymous or something like that. But in all seriousness, I think one of the things around that is your natural inclination is towards business, as is mine. Much like you, I think I was a good dentist, but because I was conscientious, not because I was talented. I wanted to do good work, and I worked my backside off to be good enough at it, but I never felt like I had the magic fingers that some of my peers and contemporaries have. And some of the work I see others do, I take my hat off to them, but that's just not me. But for me, I've always felt that business is my version of art, and I've always felt that there's a creative element to it as well. And I think I don't mean this to sound a little monologish, but I think one of the struggles that some dentists have when they want to run their business is they still really love clinical work. And I think that's really admirable. And I'm not saying it's not achievable to do both, but you've got to have a baseline interest in business. I don't think you can say, I'm going to own a practice, I'm just going to bury my head in the clinical work and forget the business side of things. You do need to pay attention to that. So, Michael, you and I are probably peas in a pod. But for those of them who are a bit more normal compared to us, I shouldn't say that, should I? But anyway, but generally, there's a lot of dentists that enjoy their clinical work. What advice do you have for those people that enjoy clinical dentistry but still want to engage in the business ownership piece? Because it's
I
hard.
think that's great. Like, I think that if I had masterful hands and could do brilliant technical work, then it's quite possible I wouldn't have gone down the path I have. So this is not a better, worse,
No, no.
one or the other at all. So I think that I did this because I wanted to do it. And I think that if you love what you do from a technical point of view, that's great. Okay. However, I think that to the point you made, I completely agree in the sense that 30, 40 years ago, you didn't need to know a thing about business and you could get a good income as a dentist, have your own practice, and it's completely changed now. So the thing is, it's like anything, any skill, where the more time and effort you commit to it, the better you will get. So if you want to get fit, you're going to get more fit running once a week than once a month. You're going to get more fit running twice a week than once a week. Or if you spend a lot of time and effort on it, if you're running every day, you're going to get a whole lot more fit. So I think it's like perfectly fine to like the clinical aspect of things. That's great. But I suppose business is a completely discrete skill set.
Yes.
There is zero overlap. So if you want to run a better business, you just have to be aware you need to commit time and effort to it. Fact. It's that simple. In the same way as you're not going to get fitter sitting on your couch and thinking about fitness or thinking about the fact you should be doing fitness. If you want to get better, you've got to commit to doing it. And I think it's very much a proportionate relationship that the more time you spend on it, the better you will get.
Yeah, 100%. Mate, I really strongly agree with what you're saying there. And of course, the problem is that no one teaches anyone business skills while they're going through their dental degree. And I get that. It's a pretty full schedule. But just so I don't alienate everyone, my whole philosophy is you build the business that works for you. And if that's clinical work, then delegate the admin. Build a team to support you administratively. If it's wanting to delegate the clinical work like Michael and I prefer to do, then do that. You get to choose. The beauty of being in your own business is you do get to choose how you run your business, how you operate it, how you design it. Just again, so that point comes across clearly. As Michael said, there's no better or worse. It's just what works for you.
I think just on that, sorry, Jesse, is it okay if I just jump in for a tick on that? Yeah, briefly. Yeah. Look,
right.
I think I completely agree. And that's exactly what I had to figure out. So to use the E-Myth Revisited, which is a book, which is a really good book on business, you've got the technician, managers, and the entrepreneur, or where's the business going. So there's 3 different hats, right? And you basically got to figure out which one and to what degree you want to be doing that. So for me, I could do the technical work as a dentist, so that was fine. I didn't enjoy and wasn't particularly good at the managing side of things. And I really loved the entrepreneurship, where's the business going thing. So you just got to figure out which hat you want to wear, to what extent, and then find others to do the other one. So for me, I found other really good technicians who could do the work. And I found one particular very good manager who helped assist me with that, to fill that hat too. So it's really recognizing the 3 components of the business and then figuring out who does what, which one you want to do for starters. And then, having other people do the ones that you're not quite so keen on.
Love it. So, mate, let's come to the point where the practice is at its fully formed point. Just give us a bit of an overview of 10 chairs, how many dentists, what was the clinical team looking like? What was the support team looking like?
So I think we've over 30 team members altogether. I think we had 7 dentists, I think. We had 5 hygienists / OHTs. Now, they didn't all work full time. There was a varied mix of days. So a clinical team of 12 and a practice manager who was exceptional. And we experimented with different setups underneath her as well, with varying degrees of success. And then we had an admin team, I think it would have been 5 or 6, 5 receptionists maybe. And then everyone else was a team of a dozen, I guess, dental assistants and sterilization nurses and the back end of the practice.
So how much of the people management were you doing and how much was the practice manager or others doing on your behalf?
Yeah, look, I think the practice manager... What was that, sorry?
30 is a lot.
It's huge. And the problem is that as you mess scales too. And the thing is that my practice manager, who was exceptional, I worked closely with, the things that when you're at 12 people, when you've got 30 people, it's very difficult because she's only just still one person and you've then got 2.5 times as many people. So you've got 2.5 times as much mess and people to deal with. And how do you then compress that into the same workload is very difficult. So she was a true practice manager and did the vast majority of the managing of the team. Absolutely. I was still very much a hands-on owner in the sense that I was there and working hard and would have the conversations that needed to be had and was part of that. But I was very clear on finding the very best manager of people I'd ever worked with and putting her in charge of that. And she did an exceptional job. We worked very well together. And it's the visionary and the implementer. So she was the brilliant implementer of my vision. And we still did a bit of both. So she would have some amazing ideas too, and I would help with the implementation of things too. But basically my big idea, she was able to get down on paper and communicate to the team and then get them all marching to the beat of that drum better than anyone I've worked with before.
Yeah, it's a massive advantage to have someone like that who can translate it. Yeah.
Can I just on that point, Jesse, sorry. So I've got this theory, right, that like a small business is like a solar system, right? So the owner is the sun. So the owner is the center of the whole thing. They give out the light, which you could say is money, direction, whatever you want to say, to the whole solar system. Without the sun, there's nothing, right? It's darkness. There's nothing there. Each of the dentists were the planets, right? So they're rather important too. But then again, if you lose one or two, Pluto got the chop. When I went through school, it was 9 planets. Now it's 8. So if you lose one or two, that can happen as well. And all the administrative staff and everyone else are like the moons of the planets, right?
Yes.
And there's a constant challenge between, as individuals and people, you're all the same value, I guess. Like you can't say that one person is any more important as an individual as another. But in terms of the roles, very much there's different roles to the practice. Earth's the right. You've got your Earth and your Jupiter, I guess, the biggest and the most important planet in the business system. The sun sits at the center of it. And for me, my practice manager was like gravity. So she was the one who actually had everything moving and rotating in the right direction. So I think that's how I view it. I feel that you've got the owner is the sun. You've got the dentists are the planets. The moons are the smaller, again, they're orbiting the planets. And then I think you need someone who's your gravity, right? Who's your gravity? Who creates order in amongst these large bodies? Who's making sure that they're not crashing into each other?
Yeah, the unifying force. I think there's a lot in there as well. I'll come back to that metaphor in a minute because it's a very useful metaphor. I wanted to ask you, though, when the practice was humming along, 10 chairs, all going along very swimmingly, what were the challenges that you encountered at that level that you didn't encounter when you were back in the 2-chair practice? Because new level, new devil, right? And what were the challenges that perhaps you didn't anticipate that cropped up?
Very honestly, so you've got your hard skills and your soft skills. The hard skills were fine, right? Like I could do those standing on my head. People, simple as that, Jesse. People are messy and confusing. And when you have 3 or 4 receptionists all sitting within arm's distance of each other, as opposed to 2, that's a lot of relationships all intermingling who've all got to be broadly on the same page. There's a lot of people to annoy each other in a small session. You've then got a dental assistant body of 12, 15 people that one doesn't like how someone else does something. So 100%, Jesse, people are hard, people are messy, and it's very difficult. I was very fortunate to work with some amazing people who I would go to war for and incredible people. But there were also some challenges there, absolutely. And sometimes I think I used the solar system, and if I was to go back, I think I spent too much time listening to and paying attention to the moons and not enough to the planets. I got a bit too caught up in the politics of the moons and how they felt about life and work and things. And I should have paid more attention to the planets and spent more time doing that and said to the moons, figure it out, like on board or off board. But I feel like I got caught up in a whole lot of the minutiae and the rubbish that's involved with that. And I should have but yeah, people are messy and complex and fragile, and communication when you've got 30 people who work as intimately as you do in a dental practice, it's a lot of personalities and things. You feel like you're putting out spot fires or keeping everyone just humming along, and it's tiring. Like that's the fixing stuff. It's not much fun. Like that's rather, whereas when you've got a smaller team, there's fewer relationships to manage. So you can actually focus on where you're trying to get to, as opposed to this person's a bit upset because this person said this one thing, and it just is like, you just go, I wish we could focus on, and a lot of them did, to be honest. Like I work with some amazing people, but there's always,
it's really interesting
in that regard.
You add one person to the mix and the number of potential relationships increases exponentially because one person goes to 31, but there's now an extra 30 relationships to manage.
Yep.
So I think that's really interesting. It's interesting, Michael. I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, and they've got a large team too, probably up to about 40, and it's a lot, right? As you would well know. And we have a substantial team as well. And it's interesting, we're going through a hiring process at the moment. And some of my lessons I've learned, and I'm wondering if you got to this point as well, is like here's the job, here's what it involves, here's the job description, here's the contract, here's the rate of pay. And I got to a point, or have got to a point where I'm like, if you don't like it, that's okay. You don't need to take it, but I'm not going to turn myself upside down and inside out to accommodate people, because once you start trying to do that, yeah, which you can do in a small team, right? But in a larger
Yeah.
team, it's just impossible. Did you reach that threshold as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, to be honest, like, I think it's this, I'm still working through a lot of those things in terms of how, like, I feel, to be very frank, Jesse, like, I probably have a bit of heartache about the fact that, like, I don't expect people to work as hard as what I did for the business. I get that. So if I'm there at midnight trying to fix a server, I get it. That's just a me job. But in terms of investing in each other, I do feel like not everyone, but there are some people where you invest a whole lot more in them than what you get back. And that is really disheartening. And you take it personally, and it's really disappointing as well. So yeah, there's probably a bit of scar tissue in that regard of going, like, I genuinely believed in my team and I wanted to do the very best I can. A lot of them give that back, which is amazing. But there's some others, like, I've got a theory, another one, but you've got flags and flagpoles, and flags go whichever way the wind's going. When they're very happy when it's a bright sunny day because everyone's looking at them, but you get a speck of rain, you got to take down the flag, and oh, how come no one's looking at me? I'm not appreciated. I'm not this, I'm not that. And whereas the flagpole is stoic, resolute, unmoving, unremarkable, right? You walk past the flagpole, no one stops and looks at it, but that's the one doing the heavy lifting, right? Without the flagpole, the flag is nothing. It's just a colorful rag on the ground, Jesse. So give me more flagpoles and less flags. And I think that reflecting on that as a model for our team, like, I think that I was fortunate to work with a whole lot of flagpoles, but the flags are pretty frustrating because they want the attention, and if it's not sunny and they're not getting their attention, and they don't make independent decisions. They want to see which way the mood or the vibe is, and then they will go along with that rather than having conviction of a position. And that to me is something that I'm very much someone who has strong convictions, and I can make decisions independently of the masses and can have a strong moral compass on what should be done in a certain circumstance. So I think team, like, when you're managing that many people, it's really hard. And yeah, like, I put my hand up to say, I think I got bogged down a bit in the weeds of that towards the end, where you're trying to fight these big battles to allow your team to work, but then also you're getting stuck on the stuff that within the practice that you think, why am I spending time? Like, this is just something which doesn't move us closer to our end goal.
Yeah. I think one of the questions that's probably inevitably going through someone's mind as they're listening to the podcast is, how do you identify a flagpole versus a flag, right?
I've got a theory on that.
Okay, all right. Is this another metaphor? I'm looking for another metaphor, mate. Because
my wife says I use too many metaphors, but look, so Jesse, here's the thing, right? I reckon I can tell you exactly how to figure that out, and I reckon I can tell anyone who's listening. If you go, I'm not sure which one I am, I'll tell you how to find that out, right? Here's the thing. Think about every private conversation, not with your husband or your wife or your partner, but every conversation you've had with a member of the team about your boss. Okay? Now imagine every text message, every discussion in the lunchroom. Imagine that's all written out and your boss is reading it in front of you. How are you feeling? If you are crapping yourself because you go, oh my goodness, I'm so embarrassed I said those things, you're a flag. Okay? If you're sitting there going, do you know what? There's some things there. I get that there's private conversations, but if there's things there, they go, do you know what? I'm not thrilled that I said that, but I'm not embarrassed by it. Everything I've said is justified. It's about performance, not personality. Then you're a flagpole. All right. So I reckon for all the flagpoles I worked with, if I was to hear every conversation they'd ever had about me, they'd have nothing to worry about. Right. Okay. Yeah. They'd have some small little gripes every now and then, but there's nothing in there where they'd be appalled to have me find out that they'd said it. The flags, absolutely. If you saw every Slack message, text message, phone conversation, everything else, and they had to read it back to me in front of me, they would be deeply embarrassed. And I think that's the test, right? I think that's the test of which one you are or which one they are. It's like, if you'd feel comfortable, the private conversations, then I've got no trouble with, like, sometimes behavior isn't ideal, but it's, did I focus on the behavior or did I just have pot shots at someone? There's a key difference there.
Yeah, I think also it's really interesting. On that note, identifying the flags and the flagpoles before they come into the practice again is something that's hard. Challenging. But it's really interesting because I reflect on some of the things, like, we're all human. We all have days where we're killing it, we're doing really well, and then we have other days when we're not at our best. I wanted to ask you how you separate that, because is it just a track record? You go, hang on, so-and-so Mary over there, she's normally pretty solid, but yeah, maybe today there's some stuff going on that gives me a bit of context why she's not. Or do you get this track record here? What I'm trying to understand is what are the telltale signs? What are the indicators?
I think there's two things, right? And I think it's a really good question. So we talked before, like, my brain works a very logical way. So when things like that happen, I think there's two things. It's like, what was the intent? Okay. So if something goes wrong, but their intent was something that I can understand, they had positive intentions, I'm very forgiving, right? So we had just to use an example, the top of my head, right? We had a new young dentist. He ran into trouble with an extraction. I helped him out and I said, just put it through, like no gap, right? But he misunderstood it and he didn't charge them anything for it. It happened a couple of times, right? And then we figured it out. And he was mortified, but he's not his intent was to follow my instructions. He just misunderstood that. No dramas. Let's move forward there because the intent was positive, right?
Yeah.
If the intent is negative, that's a very different story. So my two things are, so if you think about, if a surgeon opens up your tummy with a scalpel, right? Or someone jumps from the bushes and stabs you, it's the same action. They're putting something sharp into your body. So why is one a positive and one a negative? And the difference is the intent. The surgeon is trying to help you and heal you. Yeah. The mugger who stabs you is trying to harm you. So I think that's the first thing. What was this person's intent in performing that action? Okay. That's a key thing. And then I think it's very clearly, Jesse, the other part of it is what's the gap between their best and their worst? So if you go and you watch a golfer, if you watch high school kids hitting a golf ball, they'll still hit plenty of good shots. 2 out of every 10 will go long and straight, but their worst shots are terrible. Okay. If you watch a professional, their worst shots are really good shots. Okay. So I think it's the same thing with cases. Anyone can show your highlight reel, but and with behavior, I'm not interested in how good you were on your best day. Show me your worst couple of days of the last 10 and your best team members will still be really quite good on the worst couple of days and the past couple of weeks there. So for me, that's the thing. It's what's the person's intent with this? Were they saying it to harm or are they saying it with a view? Same thing with criticism, right? I understand no one's perfect, including me. But if someone's just gossiping for the sake of gossiping, their intent is not good. If they're saying, do you know what? I think Michael needs to spend a bit more time with the clinicians. It feels like he's doing that. That intent could be quite good as opposed to going, do you know what? Oh, I think this, I think that. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do that. Intention is the key thing. And hey, if I think this, maybe I'll go and talk to the guy about it. So intent and the difference between your best and your worst, that's how I rank and mark people. The best performers, the flagpoles, the difference between their best and their worst is very small. Then when a bad day is still really good.
Can I add a Jesse criteria into that?
Go for it. Yeah.
Who they say it to. So, in essence, if they've got a gripe, say it to someone who can actually do something about it
100%.
rather than just sounding off in the tea room about whatever. We're having a conversation off here about a difficult conversation I'd had earlier today. It's like, okay, how you say it, where you say it, all those sorts of things, I think is just as important, for me at least, when I'm working with people. So I think that's the only other criteria I'd add there.
I like that as well. I think, who you say it to is important. It's like, can this person help solve the problem or not? Yeah. And if they don't, it's like, what's the point? Like, play silly games, win silly prizes, right? Like, there's no award for being the best gossiper at the practice. Everyone's a little bit scared of you. Big deal. Play a bigger game. Try and be as good as you can at your role. Like, that's something worth going for, as opposed to going, I play a silly game of gossiping and everyone's a bit scared of you. That's not much of a trophy to aspire for.
No, it's really not. And if there are any team members listening to this podcast, here's my other hot tip for you, is be as valuable as you can to the practice. And I promise you the rewards will come because your contribution will be recognized. The practice owner will absolutely want to retain you and they will look after you because it's in their interests to do so.
Just on that point, because it sounds like I'm having gripes, but your best team members are like gold. You'd walk on glass for them and you'd do anything you possibly can. So I think that this is the thing, right? I'm not here to pump my own tires, but I expect more than the bare minimum from my team, but I absolutely expected more than the bare minimum from me too. And I went out of my way to demonstrate that too, every single chance I can. So if you're a high performing team member, they are so amazing. And you treat them like that. And if you're not being treated like that, then find someone who does, right? Because there are good bosses out there who recognize high performance and recognize contribution, who want really good, who want those flagpoles, and they're valuable, they're sacred, they're important. And you thank your lucky stars that they work for you. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. I'm like you, very grateful. I have an amazing team, which is really good. Michael, let's move on to the sale because the 81-day process, pretty short and swift and all the rest of it. Now, Michael, your practice is an outlier. You worked really hard to get it to the point where it is. And again, I salute your efforts there. It's not by accident, it's absolutely by design. And so I just want to acknowledge that. And so for the audience listening, this is not a fluke. This is a carefully thought out strategy. This is carefully executed plans over a period of time. So please understand, this is not a one and done, yeah, got a lucky break, whatever. Like, this is a very deliberate strategy. So I know, Michael, practices such as yours sell quickly, they sell well because they are very sellable. I wanted to ask you a little bit about why you thought, you've probably alluded to it a bit already, but if there's anything else, why you thought your practice was so attractive to a purchaser.
I think the fact that a business is basically, it's a multiple multiplied by the future expected earnings, really.
Yep.
Okay. So to increase the likelihood of a prospect of future expected earnings, you want to reduce risk as much as possible for starters. So one of the key risks is key person dependent. Key person risk. So one of the things I purposely did was made sure that, one, the whole practice didn't depend on me, but two, so none of our clinicians build more than 17% of the total revenue. So for a potential buyer, that's very attractive because it's not all hinged on one person sticking around. So the fact that was the case meant that they reduced their risk straight away in knowing that there's a nice even contribution of practitioners to the practice revenue. So I think doing that, absolutely. I think having clear systems, procedures, and ways of doing things is really important too. So having it highly systematized, having accountability around performance and roles and expectations as well, again, meant that it was as close to a turnkey solution as what you can possibly have. So I think begin with the end in mind, be clear on that. I spent an enormous amount of time working on those things. Christmas Eve, and everyone else says, oh, so got 2 weeks off. And I was like, I'm going to write a hygiene manual. So, and did, right? And that became part of our broader intranet, basically. So it's not by fluke, right? And I think that people have seen the feedback we would constantly hear from people joining us is, this is the best run practice I've ever worked at, or this is the best run business I've ever worked at. We had an experienced nurse who came once who did a trial day with us. And her comment was, she's like, we offered her the job and she said no. She said, it's like NASA. Like, that was her exact words. It's like, it's too, and I was like, wow, all right. Well, so I think that's probably a bit of an exaggeration, but yeah, because we worked hard, we had clear accountability, we were really clear in our roles. So, but it's all by design, Jesse. Like, this is the thing, you're right. It doesn't just happen and have a really well-run practice overnight. It's about spending the time writing those manuals and putting them in a format and making sure people read them, and then doing that for every role and having checklists.
Yeah.
100%.
All that. I love that, mate. And just a fun fact, I was Boxing Day, we went away for the Christmas break, and Boxing Day I was writing some stuff too, so I feel you. Anyway, I'm not sure how to ask this question, so I'm going to go on into dangerous territory. But anyway, standard valuation methodology, as you said, earnings times a multiple, repeatable, sustainable earnings times a multiple, right? The multiple, most dental practices will sell anywhere from 3.5 to 5.5. Yours was an outlier practice. Did you get an outlier multiple?
Yeah, it's a good question. And yeah, it's a fair question. So you're quite right that the normal multiple, as I understand it, of dental practices, and a whole lot of factors go into it, but yeah, it's 3.5 to 5.5. Ours was a little bit outside that range, but there were good reasons for that, I suppose. So I think, but yeah, 3.5 to 5.5 is my understanding of it. But I suppose there are exceptions to that, and we were able to achieve that. Not an enormous amount outside that, but the fact that it was a very large practice, the fact that it was extremely well run, the fact that there was such low dependency on any one person meant that, yeah, it was, I suppose, attractive to potential buyers, and the buyers that I approached saw it as being attractive. And yes, that was able to deliver a result that, yeah, was a good one, a strong one, that I was, very happy with.
Word on the street is it's a little north of 6.
Can't comment, Jesse, but look, I think
I tried. Listeners, I tried.
Yeah, look, there's been, it's funny actually, a few friends, beyond dentistry, have sort of like thrown numbers around. It's quite funny actually, because I don't know where they're getting from. But look, I sit here a very happy man, and it's nice to, the thing is, right, like people ask about the sale process and they say, oh, you must have learned so much. I didn't. And the reason why is because all it did, you spend so much time doing these things that make a highly profitable, highly scalable, highly valuable business, but you don't actually know until the rubber hits the road and you say, hey, all it did is verify the fact that, and validate that, I should say, that, yeah, these things work. Like all that time and effort, that stack of books and the bookshelf behind me of books I've read on business and finance and things, they matter, and then it does deliver the result. So all the sale process just demonstrated to me, it franked what I had also always, it turned the theory into a theorem. It's like the theory of what a good business should be. It turned it into a proven thing of there's the figure, and you go, cool, it worked. So I think that these things matter. Like if you've done your training, again, the fitness, if you've run every day, you should feel confident before race day because you've done everything. And the same thing, if you've worked hard, having a very successful practice and investing the time into it, of course you're going to get a good result because you've spent all your time doing it. So we are what we repeatedly do. And I spent a lot of time working on the business. So it should be good.
It should be good. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Now, just I want to reference your bookcase behind you because I'm in an office where I don't have my books and I can see lots of ones there. But I want to ask you, I'm fond of books as you are too. I know we often, it feels like we have a book club going. Favorite book, the one that made the biggest impact on you?
Well, like, look, yours was very good, Jesse. So I'll just set up. So Retention by Jesse. We're talking about it.
That was not me.
I know, but it's a very good book. It's a very good book. So that's the thing I'd say. But I think the two key ones that set me off were The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber and Built to Sell by John Warrilow. They were foundational for me. Then one more, Checklist Manifesto, I found very good. Yep. And then the best book on customer service I've ever read by the length of the straight was a book called Unreasonable Hospitality. I thought that was brilliant. Yellow book, yellow cover by a guy who runs a restaurant in New York. I got an enormous amount out of that, and that helped fire a lot of neurons for things that we did at the practice that I feel were, amazing. So I think they'd be the ones. Yeah, I've read a lot of business books behind me. That's the stuff. I read that in 3 years. That's my height in business books. I'm 6'6", so there's a lot of, that's 2 meters odd of books. Plus there's a whole stack in here I've read too. So I think, reading them, you learn a lot, and it was time well spent. But there'd be the books that I feel if you're starting out, E-Myth Revisited, Built to Sell, The Checklist Manifesto, and Unreasonable Hospitality.
Yeah, there you go. Michael, as always, you're very generous with your time, your expertise, your wisdom, your knowledge. I have one last question for you.
Sure.
And actually, two last questions. So I'm going to sneak a bonus question if I can. Sorry.
Go for it.
First question is, what's next?
Whoa, Jesse.
John Warrilow would say it's important to have something to go to, right?
Yeah. Look, I think I'll have the 1A answer is I did this without knowing what was next, which is the first time in my life. I'm someone who likes structure and did this without actually having the next thing. And I understand the importance of going to something, but I was confident enough that I'd figure it out, right? So the simple question is, I don't quite know. There's 3 things that I reckon I'd do for free just because I really enjoy them. And I like to write. So I've written a few business things on LinkedIn, politics, and I do like surgical extractions. It's the one aspect of dentistry that I really enjoy and I'm a lot above the bell curve at. But I really don't know. So I honestly, if anyone's got any ideas, hit me up. But it's something I actually like to put it back to people on the other side and say, like when someone asks me, I won't put you on the spot with that, Jesse, but it's like, to say to them, well, what would you do? Because it's an interesting position to be in, is to be on the sidelines and not have an imperative to have to, it's nice to not have to swing at every pitch in terms of having to jump back out and go, I'm going to go do this or something else. But what your motivation is, it's an interesting position to be in. And I'm just enjoying life. It's been nice to tick a few boxes of the bucket list things or doing some of those sorts of things. So there's a few little projects, catching up with mates, a lot of coffees and things. But in terms of the next project, I think the thing is, right, like it takes it out of you. Like it's hard, jolly work. And sometimes you haven't asked it quite like that. People go, I can't wait to see what you do next. I'm like, I'm exhausted. Like that was hard. Like I'm still just decompressing from what I've just achieved and done. So watch this space. I'm not about to launch into something, but I'm very happy. Anyone who wants to touch base, have a chat, hit me up. That's fine. But I don't quite know yet. So I'm not quite sure.
The reason I ask is because, as you know, we sold our practice recently as well. And my wife, her next thing is a gap year. So she's taking a middle-aged gap year and then same sort of thing. She said, I'll just decompress for a year and see what I feel like doing after that. My last question, mate, is really, again, for the practice owners listening to the call, final advice, insights, anything you want to share that we haven't quite covered.
Look, I'm going to be really pretty blunt, I guess. And that's my view is like, if you take the risk of business ownership, you have to make bank, right? Like it has to be worth it. Okay.
Yep.
And I just see so many business owners, frankly, they're not making enough money relative to the rest of their team. Okay. And for the risk and heartache that you take on, it is not worth it unless there is a payoff. Okay.
Yeah.
So it breaks my heart a bit when you kind of have these discussions and you're like, what, like, how are you? So know your numbers inside out, but it's hard, jolly work being a business owner. It is really hard. And if you are doing that, you need to make it worthwhile. And that ultimately, yep, there's a sense of reward. And I get that there's some little frilly bits about being able to control your day and stuff, but you need to be making bank and you need to figure out how to do that. Okay. And however that looks for you, knowing your numbers inside out, if you're not doing that, it just doesn't make sense to do it for 10%, 20% extra compared to what you get as an employee dentist or a contracted dentist. So if you're a business owner, you need to figure that out ASAP.
Oh, mate, amen. I could probably speak for another 3 hours on that topic. I have the pleasure of talking to lots of dentists. Sorry, mate, I'm probably opening up a whole conversational thread here.
Let's
Let's keep
going, Jesse.
And I'm opening up a whole conversational thread because it is actually, I think, a really important topic. Owning a business requires the business owner to put their capital at risk. It requires the business owner to take on other risks in terms of employing people and the whole shebang, right? And I am very much in agreement that there has to be a return on investment, return on effort that is worthwhile. And I get to talk to lots of practice owners, and thankfully we work with the 1% and those that are doing well, or at least those that aspire to be in the 1%. But there is a whole subset of practice owners out there who really candidly I worry for, because it is tough. It is really tough. And you got to know your numbers. Like Michael said, you have to know your numbers, because if you're not making money, if you're sailing too close to the wind, all you need is one giant tax bill or a piece of a major equipment to play up or whatever it is. And all of a sudden things change. So yeah, I'm with you, mate. It breaks my heart when I see practice owners not getting the returns. It hurts my heart.
100%.
Anyway, I will get off my soapbox. Anyway, dude, you're a legend. Thank you. And
Jesse.
Mate, it's my pleasure. Not only you're a legend, mate, your beard's a legend. I'm going to go back and see the LinkedIn post about what would the beard do. And ladies and gents, if you want to go and read Michael's musings on LinkedIn, please do. They're very worthwhile. They're very informative, and check it out. Mate, as always, you're a scholar and a gentleman and just one of the nicest guys on the planet. Thank you, pal.
Thank you, mate. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for your help along the way and for having me on your podcast. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Pleasure, mate. Hey everyone, it's Jesse here. I hope you enjoyed that episode of the podcast. If you're looking for some more tools, some more insights, some more inspiration to help you create a practice that you love, as well as a life that you love, well, head across to savvydentist.com and check out all the goodies that we have there waiting for you right now.